recording now. So these will be available for future sessions. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's go to the next slide. So the roles and responsibilities of a treasurer or financial management, which means you are going to do the budgeting, you're doing the banking, and you need to maintain financial files and records. You need to know where every penny of your money is going. So you need to have some really good organizational skills and keep those records all up to date. And aspects of a treasurer, you need to have integrity. You need to keep accuracy. You need to be able to communicate well with not only your president and your other elected board members, but with everyone who's turning in receipts to you, everyone who you need to be helping out with their funds and knowing how much money they have left. So you need to be able to communicate really well with them. And transparency. That one, and if you were to ask our board here at NES, I say that all the time, is like, we need to always have complete transparency as where everything that we do, every dime that we have raised and every dime that we have spent, everyone needs to always know where that's at. So if you never want to get yourself in hot water, always continue with transparency. Okay, next slide, Rebecca. So here are some things to kind of keep in mind. Never ever sign a blank check or give out cash to anyone. One of the things that, if giving out cash, that kind of, you won't have a record of that. I mean, you always need to have a record of where all your money has gone. So never just hand out cash, and never just sign a blank check and give it to them and say, hey, I'm in a class, so you need to come back. So never just sign a blank check and give to them and say, tell me how much you spent later. We never want to do that. You always want to have an exact amount of money when you write your check and exactly whom you are writing those checks to. You'll never pay cash or take cash out of an event to pay on the spot. So again, you need to make sure there's a paper trail. So let's say that you're doing a school carnival. You have a vendor who comes in who's doing balloons for kids, and you're like, okay, well, we'll just pay them out of the cash out of our profits from tonight. Don't do that. Again, you need a paper trail. With our German vendors, a lot of them will take an IBAN, sorry, I can't say that word tonight, an IBAN for payments. I can't remember what we did when we were down in Italy and how we made payments to them, but you can pay those vendors without having to give them cash, or even with someone who comes in with a receipt for reimbursement, don't pay them cash. You need to have that money trail, paper trail at all times. Receipt books, please keep a receipt book so that every time you have money going from one person to another, use a receipt book. You can create one, or you can just use a standard receipt book. And this is also something that would be good for your spirit chairs to do. If they have, if they're making sales, to always have a receipt book, and so they can say, yeah, Jane Doe bought a t-shirt for $15. You write a receipt and you hand it to them. That way, at any time, you can go back through your records and say, nope, these are all spirit funds that came in that night. So again, receipt books are a good thing to have. One of the nice things about living here in Europe is that we don't have to file taxes or pay taxes. If your unit is already doing so, continue to do it, but it's not a requirement with us living over here in Europe. EIN. So the IRS requires that all PTA units have an employee identification number. So if you haven't gotten one, you need to make sure you go through the proper requirements to get that. If you have a functioning unit, you will have one because the only way you can have a bank account here is if you have that EIN. So if you're not sure what it is, you can actually call your bank and they will tell you. We did this recently for our own PTA. We were having to, when we were setting up our member hub, we had to put in our EIN. I was like, I don't even know what that is. And they called the bank and they happily gave it to us. So if you don't know what it is, you need to go and contact your bank for that. So before the school year starts, you want to make sure that you have a binder set up to start your year off with. And in your binder, you're going to have several things that you need. You're going to need to put in there your bylaws, because each position should have a copy of their bylaws in their folders to go back to. You should keep all minutes in there. Keep a copy of the insurance. That is something that's very important to have. We found out recently why it's important to have that. So always keep your insurance documents handy where you can find those. And a copy of your most recent audit. We're going to get more into the audit in a little bit, but always have a copy of that. All expense requests for receipts, deposit forms with deposit slips, and your monthly transaction reports. All of those are good things to keep in a binder with you. You can choose what kind of order you want it in, whatever is more comfortable with you. I like to use a chronological order, so I do everything by month. So starting with August, I have everything in there. I start first with my deposits, and then I do my expenses behind that, but everything for the month of August is in one spot. If you want to do yours in a different manner, that's really up to you. It just needs to be something that you know how to go back and say, oh yeah, this was done at this time. So, and you may need multiple binders. You may want to do one binder with your income, one with your expenses. You may do so much throughout the year that you can't put everything into one binder. So you just need to figure out what works best for you. You can go to the next slide, please. And I think I just went through all of that, so go on. Okay, also you're going to need to create a budget. And how this works, if you've never created a budget, utilize last year's budget. That's a good starting point. So you can take your final figures at the end of the year to use as a guide for the next year. And one of the things that I really like to do and have my board members do is submit a plan of work. And a plan of work is a sheet that they will fill out and tell the treasurer everything that they plan on doing this year, what they expect to spend money on, and also expected expenses and income that they might do on that particular event. It's a good way for the treasurer to know ahead of time, oh yeah, okay, we need to make sure we budget for that. And just remember that the budget, it's not fixed. At any time you can go back to vote to add or move your funds into other areas. At any time throughout the year, just remember to follow whatever guidelines that you have set forth in your bylaws. And then use a system that works for you. I personally just use Excel. It's free if you have Excel already on your computer. And for me, it's just simple. It's just like keeping a ledger from your bank account. So I use Excel for both the EPTA and our local unit uses it. I know that there are other units out there who use QuickBooks and other formats. So whatever your unit is using, whatever works for you is perfectly fine. There's no one right answer to that one. And the most important thing to remember is that our PTA budget is not the school's budget. We are not there to supplement a school's budget. That's not what the PTA's goal is. So you need to make sure that everyone is on that same page with you guys. Your budget does not belong to the school, so they cannot dictate to you how you should be spending your money. Okay, next slide. So this is an example of a budget. You'll see on the left-hand side that says revenue, and so this is what you're expecting your income for the year. I really like to break everything down. We like to know, okay, we're expecting this many members, donations. So make sure you are annotating donations. And a donation is anything. Let's say that your membership is $7.50. And they hand you an 8 and they're like, oh, just keep the change. Make sure you annotate that 50 cents is donation, because it's not actually membership funds, and it's not coming through a fundraiser. So you need to annotate donations. We break everything down through our fundraising projects. So we guesstimate our spiritware, Popcorn Friday, etc., as you can see there. And then also if you apply for community grants and scholarships, make sure you have that funds in there, expected income as well. Again, because you need to annotate every dollar that comes in as well as everything that goes out. On the right-hand side, you'll see expenses. and just be as descriptive as possible. Everything that you think you're going to be spending money on should go into your expense column. Okay, next slide. This is an example of the plan of work that I was talking about. And you can just, it's very simple and easy to read. And that the sample of this will be available in the folder at the end for you guys. Okay, next slide. So banking, again, you need to keep accurate records. At the beginning of the school year, or as you guys have changed elected board positions, you'll need to go into the bank. You need to change the signees, and there always needs to be at least 3 signees on the account. And that should include the president, and of course it has to be the treasurer, but it should always include the president as well. You may need to do a transition letter if necessary, and the bank can give you an example, but oftentimes your private organization office can give you a sample of that as well. You'll need, hopefully, if you don't have all current signees there, they can remove them for you, but it's really nice if the current signees who are leaving are there, so they can, it's easier to do a transactions or change out the signees at that time. All signees will need to be present with their ID to be added to the account. And you can also at that time order any more checks or deposit slips you might need for the day, for the year. Make sure that you keep your account records very accurately. Again, you can do it monthly, or however, if you want a folder section just stating bank account statements, I again put it in with my monthly transaction. So each month, so starting with August, I'll have my bank statement, and then it'll have my income, and then it has my expenses in the back. Make sure you balance your bank account every month. Make sure that the bank sheets that come into you, you're balancing that with what you have done also. So again, any of us who have ever learned how to balance our checkbook, it's the same format. And most importantly, please make sure only PTA funds are going into a PTA bank account. You don't want to be putting any of your personal funds in there ever. That's, never do that. And you never want to put, oh, I have monies from my my FRG. I don't want to carry it around with me, so I'm just going to shove it into the PTA account for right now, and I'll take it out later. Please don't ever do that either. Make sure the only money for PTA is going into the PTA bank account. Oh, it's another one here. Signees should not be related to one another. And I know that sometimes we have spouses who are on the board together, and I think that's fabulous. However, they can't both be signees on the bank account. So make sure that if there's a husband and wife team, or even a parent, however old your children may be, who can be on the account, make sure they are not, both of you are not on the same signee account. Again, because you want to keep that transparency there. So if there's 2 related individuals on the same account, you may not have that transparency. Okay, next slide, please. Insurance. So insurance is required annually, and I hope you all have it up to date. You need to make sure you have enough to cover any of your bonded individuals. If you see right there, it says who we have bonded is our president, our treasurer, our spirit. We've also bonded other individuals in the past. If your carnival person is going to be receiving lots of cash in, you may want to make sure that they're bonded as well, or anyone who's going to be dealing with lots of money. And this just protects you against fraud and theft. You'll have a liability insurance. This will protect you against injury or property damage. And most importantly, you need to get an audit if you haven't done one already. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I don't remember what's on that next slide. Yeah, audit. So an audit is to review your financials of your past year. It's important that you do this. You're going to have to do it for your private organization anyway, so you have to turn one into them. One of these is required to send to the EPTA to make sure that you're still a unit in good standing. So you need to do this. It's just simply a review of your financials. You need to get one at the end of every year, or if your treasurer leaves. So for those units who don't currently have a treasurer, but you have someone standing in as a treasurer, when you get a new treasurer, you will need to do a audit. Even if it's just for 1 month, you'll need to do a quick audit. And your treasurer should never, ever, 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 ever be on that audit board because it's a conflict of interest. You need 3 people, at least 3 people from the PTA at large. Again, no family relations of those 3 individuals. It needs to be 3 non-related individuals. 3 people who are not on the bank account is my suggestion. Yep, that's good. Okay, go to the next one. One of the things that you need to be turning into your private org office is a monthly treasury report. And the monthly treasury report is a good way to talk to your membership at large, to tell them how you are spending your money and to let them know how the funds are looking. So this is just a quick example of what a monthly treasury report is. I know for you guys out at Ramstein that they require something very different from this. So depending upon what your private org office is requiring for you is how it should look. But you always want to state how your income begins at the beginning of the month, income that's come in, expenses that have been sent out, and then your closing amount at the end of the month, how much you have left over. Okay, next slide. And this is, okay, so this is an example of what we use at Netzeberg Elementary School. So every single time that we have any monies that come into us, any income coming in that needs to be deposited, let's say we did a concession stand at one of our school events, and they collect monies at the end. This is so that you can account for all the money. It's very self-explanatory, I believe. And then on the left-hand side, have 2 people counting. It's always best to have 2 counters so that verify. One person counts, the second person comes back and verifies that funds, and then your treasurer will be the 3rd verification. So they will verify. You can put multiple line items on here if you want. We have stopped doing multiple line items actually in Netzeberg. We've done just concessions will have one, just Spirit will have one because of the euro. It's that way we know exactly when we go to do the euro to dollar conversion, we know exactly how much is going into that budget line. So instead of having to guess and figure out the exchange rates. So we have stopped doing multiple line items and just do 1 per budget line. Okay, next one. And this is an example of what we use when we go to reimburse someone. So again, it's fairly self-explanatory. Sometimes an individual may buy several items for different committee groups. And so that's why we have that one column that says committee or budget line. So you can just separate it that way so that when you're doing your records, you're able to show which line item you're going to take those funds from. Okay, next one. And these are resources that you can go back to look at through the private, for PTA, you can get information from your ptakit.org. There are several places that you can get resources on what you should be doing. Next one. So if y'all haven't recognized, I should have told you up front, I talk really fast. I hope you understood it, what I had to say. But if you'll see here, you can, you'll have links here that you can go and submit your EPTA Treasurer training forms, and also the forms that I talked about earlier in here. I have given copies of all the things that we have done or I've ever used in the past. So all of those are available for you guys at that treasurer file there. And I know that there are some questions. So Rebecca, if you would like to read the questions, we can go ahead and get some of those answered. I know there was one about who's responsible for the budget.
Okay, so sorry. Where are we? From Sarah Kinsman, when do we change over who is on the account? after the audit, or do we need to wait for the audit to come back?
You don't need to wait for the audit to come back. So a lot of times they're PCSing, your treasurer may be PCSing, or other signees may be PCSing. So you don't have to wait for the audit to come back. You can do that as soon as possible. The previous treasurer, if she's leaving, she does need to be available either in some way of contact when you go to submit those records for the audit, though, just as a, and the only reason why she needs to be available is if someone has a question. It's like, hey, how did you spend that money? Where did this funds go? It's not a little clear. That way they can answer those questions. That's the only time that a treasurer really needs to be involved in the audit, is just if someone has a question. But you don't have to, you can go ahead and submit your, if you're closed out your books for the year, you can go ahead and submit those for audit, whether people are coming or not. I hope that answered that. Okay, go ahead, Rebecca, next question.
Our next one is, when is the, I'm sorry, who is responsible for creating the budget? Just the president or the executive board?
So ultimately, the person responsible for the budget is the treasurer, because that's their job, is the budget. Everyone needs to have input. So I would recommend that maybe your executive board has a financial meeting, that all of you get together and you discuss how your funds should look. If you have people from the previous year, they can say, you know, we've had this on our books for the last couple of years, but we haven't really done anything. So I don't think we really need to put that much money in there. If you reach out to, if you have, like in our school, we do things with some of the teachers. We ask them to submit any requests that they may have for the next year to us, so your teachers can have input, and we say, what programs are you wanting us to try and help you with next year? So they can input that, they can give us an input from that. Every board member, no matter their position, should send you a copy of that plan of work, and that plan of work will help you all to put that budget together. Again, the treasurer is the ultimate one responsible. The president should be assisting immensely with that. But everyone has an input. So I hope that answered that one.
All right,
Go ahead,
and we
Rebecca.
have one more. When is the audit supposed to be completed by?
So there's really not a specific date of the year that it needs to be completed by. However, you should not be writing any checks until your audit is completed. So once you have submitted your books to the audit, you need to wait before you're writing any more checks. So I highly suggest that you have them done before the mid-July to as late as end of July, because come 1st of August, you're going to be back up and running in business. So my suggestion is by the 15th of July, but there's not a set date in stone anywhere. Anybody have any questions, any discussions? No, go ahead and ask the question, Monique, about gift cards, because other people may have that same question as well.
Okay, hers is gift card question. Should I, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That one actually popped up. Some of them haven't popped up for me. If you have any questions on like how you should set up your budget, I can answer those. Well, I mean, anything you have to ask, I'll be happy to try and answer those for you.
Okay, so this question's really long, so I didn't want to type it.
That's okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I have big plans for next year. Like, we're changing everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm my biggest concern with getting ready for next year is with the budget. A lot of things I don't know, because I'm changing all of our fundraisers. We've had the same fundraisers for 6 years, and the teachers have said, we hate them, please change. I was like, oh, okay. But then I don't know what money will come into the school, into the PTA. So I guess the biggest question and concern is we're going to make this budget in July, but can we constantly be like talking about it and changing it and voting on it and like moving things around?
Yes, absolutely you can, because I mean, it's not something that's fixed in stone. So once you say, okay, we all vote on it, and then you're like, can't add anything else after that. Absolutely not. Of course, especially with you guys bringing in new fundraisers and new ideas, it's going to be more of a fluid budget for you this year. However, I want to stress that you go back to your bylaws on what you can and can't do. For instance, at our school in Netzeburg, it's in our bylaws that anything under $300, our board can vote on. Anything over $300, we have to send that out to our general membership for approval. So make sure that you refer to your bylaws on anything that you need to spend. Of course, the income coming in, yeah, you're like, oh, we need a byline, we need a line for that, a budget line for that one. But you just need to be constantly updating your membership at large as to how your finances are looking. Let them know, because they have to prove that. That's something I don't think that's in any of my records I need to add. Even though your board votes on your budget, you need to send that budget to your general membership as well for them to approve, because it's their money as well.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So our current board we've never informed the general membership of any of the funds. And we did a parent survey 2 weeks ago, and one of their biggest complaints is, I want to know where my money's going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my goal is to make a lot of changes because there's so many unhappy people. And so I guess my biggest other concern is, how often can I message the EPTA to ask all my questions?
Oh, I'm available anytime, really. And where are you at again?
Great.
Where are you at?
Hohenfels.
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought you were in Hohenfels. Well, I'm not that far down the road from you at any time either. So I always love to meet for a cup of coffee if we can. But no, don't hesitate to ever send an email and ask me questions. I'm always available for questions. That's really one of my roles here, not only to keep funds for the EPTA, but to help you guys out in your role. So I would suggest that each month, when you guys have your monthly board meeting, that you can take your financial report, like the copy of the example of the financial report that I sent out earlier.
Yes.
You can take that and include it in your minutes that all your members at large should be getting a copy of as well, because they have a right, and they have a right to know what happens in the meetings and where their funds are going. And then if and when you guys have your general memberships, you should be stating at your general membership meeting, just to let you know where your funds are and kind of give a real brief. And you can do those like from your September, let's say you did a general membership meeting in September, and then you do your next one in November. And you can say from September to November, this is what our funds look like. And then make sure you're posting it somewhere visible in the school. So if you have a PTA bulletin board, stick it on there. And that way, anytime anyone has a question, they can come in and look at it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No worries.
Oh, so one quick thing, Leanne. Chris just sent me a message to remind everyone, actually, we do have a due date for our audits.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Yes. So you need to submit your audit for the UIGS by November 1st.
Oh, yes. For units in good standings. I apologize. That is right. And I know that we talked about that just recently, but my brain wasn't on for unit in good standings. My brain was thinking about as our year for the treasurers. So yes. So the person who asked the question, I'm sorry, I don't remember who that was now, who asked about make sure you submit your audits by the 15th. Is it 15th of November?
1st of November.
1st of November. Oh, 1st of November. Make sure you submit by the 1st of November for your unit in good standing. Because if you're not a unit in good standing, then there's some repercussions from that I think you probably talked about in your president's meeting the other day, and memberships for all that. So 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 yes, you're right. I forgot. I apologize, y'all. Okay, was there another budget? Somebody have another budget question?
Yes, it was a continuation to the gift card. What is the guidelines in purchasing gift cards under a budget line item?
I don't know. I don't know if there are any. I would just be very cautious about utilizing gift cards. What do you utilize? Okay, is that Monique who wrote that one? Because I think I remember
Yes.
seeing the name flash up. Hey, Monique,
Yeah.
what are you guys, just as curiosity, what are you guys using the gift cards for?
Okay, it's Monica.
Oh, Monica, I apologize.
No worries, no worries. So the gift card would be it's part of we have a volunteer appreciation budget line item,
Yeah.
and the gift cards would be less than $10.
Yeah.
As an appreciation.
Okay. I don't think there's anything. I will look up. Let me write that down to look up. I don't think
Leanne,
there's
can I speak to
anything-
that?
Oh yes, please, Chris, go ahead.
Okay. There tends to be confusion about that sometimes, because if you go to, say, the National PTA Local Leaders page, it's a question that just came up recently, and every state has a different answer because every state has its own guidelines it follows, their own state bylaws, things like that. The big thing in the states is there's a huge kerfluffle that nobody agrees on as to whether or not it is a 401c3 issue. Now, for us, we're not 401c3s, so we are kind of outside that parameter anyway. So over here, the guidelines that we kind of go by is, yes, it is okay to purchase them, to use as prizes, to use as volunteer appreciation, things like that. However, you need to make sure you have your documentation, a chain of custody, that they're not just laying out in your PTA room. You're treating them as PTA property, and that there is a decent record being kept of them, because it is money essentially. So just do your due diligence there and you are covered.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, some of that you were saying, Chris, I was like, I knew some of that answer because when we were in the States, that was a big no-no for us. But I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember that answer for here. So thank you, Chris. I'm writing that information down for my own information as well. Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Again, I know I talk really fast, so if I went over something that no one understands, please let me know. It's a habit. I talk fast.
Hi, just a question, Cheryl Thatcher at Ramstein. For the member hub signing up for the store and with the EIN number, when you click on it, if we click on nonprofit?
Yes, I think that's what we did, is what we did nonprofit, and we also there'll be a place for education is what we did, is what we clicked on.
Well, for the industry category, is it education? Yeah. So, and then it says nonprofit corporation or unincorporated association?
Unincorporated.
Okay, so unincorporated and then education.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Also remember, Friday is our member hub training. So Chris, who is here, she will also be going in further detail on how to set it up and work with it. So if you have any more,
not so much.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
I know you
going
do.
over more membership nuts and bolts in general. We're going to be mainly directing people to the member hub trainings themselves for the actual setup information, but there will be links to where to find that, and we can answer questions as they come up as well.
Yeah, so everyone just keep in mind that member hub is new for us as well, so we will all be in a learning curve, but I know that the folks at member hub have been very gracious and have been answered all of our questions anytime that we have a question. So utilize those links that they give you for those, and you should be fine. Okay. And just as a reminder, everyone, to please don't forget to submit your training certifications to that link that was provided. It's in your chat if you need need that link again. And if nobody has any other questions, then I don't need to keep talking. So, I mean, I love to talk, but I don't have to. So.
So I have a question, but I guess it's more, it's just for you, so I could wait until we finish.
Is it if it's treasurer related, please go ahead and ask it, because other people may have that question as well.
Okay, so we have a fund request that was approved for a training, but because of course, because everything that's changed, the teacher wasn't able to utilize it. So the fund request, or the event that was approved for her to attend, we just would receive word that they are going to reschedule it for December. So can we keep the same approval and earmark those funds in our new upcoming budget?
Yeah,
Or does she have
absolutely.
to? Okay.
No, you can, because you already know, because if you haven't, I can't talk. If you have not made your budget for the next school year, you're like, hey, you know, we got this money that we need to spend. Put that in that budget line, so that you're not having to go back out and vote for it a second time.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead and put that into your budget. We've done that here at our school when we have teacher requests that come in, and we're like, well, we kind of keep getting these teacher requests, so then we just put it into our budget for the following year.
Okay, perfect. And should I use it just as a generic teacher at a budget line item that's a generic title, or
So
should we be specific?
if you wanted to put in, if you wanted to put in like a training budget line, I mean, that way, if you guys pay for a member, a board member to go to EPTA training, it will be covered. Or if you pay for your teachers to go to training, so you can put in just something as generic as a training line.
Okay.
And then you just have to have set up within your board what your guidelines are for those, as to how much you're willing to pay per person, etc. So that's something that you guys would just need to decide on.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, if no one else has any other questions, I'm going to say have a good evening. Rebecca, do you have anything for anyone?
I do not, and just thank you guys for showing up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all those were done. Participants, yeah. So okay. All right. Well, have a good evening, guys. So it didn't take as long as you might have thought, but again, if you have any questions at any time, please just reach out and send me an email, or and I will be happy to get back with you.
Oh, one last thing. Don't forget your link in order to get credit for this training. The link is, Chris just shared it. It is the HTTP tiny URL EPTA Treasurer, and I'll take you straight to the form.
Yeah.
Okay.